Hi, it's Nikki Lowe and welcome to the Wisdom for Working Mums podcast show. I'm your host, and for nearly 2 decades now, I've been an executive coach and leadership development consultant. And on this show, I share evidence-based insights from my coaching, leadership and psychological expertise, and inspiring interviews that help women like you to combine your work, life and motherhood in a more successful and sustainable way. Join me and my special guests as we delve into leadership and lifestyle topics for women, empowering you to thrive one conversation at a time. I'm so happy that you're here, and let's get on with today's episode. Welcome to this episode. I'm your host, Nikki, and today I'm excited to introduce Rachel Exton. She's a seasoned commercial leader with a wealth of experience in brand management and marketing strategy. Rachel has worked with some of the world's most recognised brands, including Dyson, Unilever and John Frieda. And she's currently the Vice President of Global Marketing for Pearson's English Language Learning Division. And I think you're going to love this conversation. And I think you're going to love Rachel like I did, because throughout her career, she has redefined brand positioning. She's driven product innovation and delivered really impressive results on a global scale. But beyond her professional achievements, she's a really proud mum of 2, Charlie and Molly. And in this episode, we delve into how Rachel balances her demanding career with family life. We talk about strategies for success in both arenas and the lessons she's learned along the way. And she's got some really, really great lessons where it's gone well and when it's not gone so well, but the gifts that can give us. So whether you're navigating the complexities of a high-powered career or you're seeking inspiration to manage your own work-life balance, this conversation is for you. I won't keep you any longer. Let's dive in and welcome Rachel. So Rachel, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you, Nikki. It's a pleasure to be here.
So for those that don't know about you and your background, would you mind giving us an insight into this kind of really impressive career? When I read your CV, I'm like, wow, because you've got some top tier brands in there. And am I right in saying that you're now working as a leading global marketing for Pearson's English Language Learning Division, which I'd not heard of that. So I'd love to hear more.
Oh, thank you, Nikki. Yes, so I am currently at Pearson. They are the world's a lifelong learning company. And I joined them 3 years ago now. And I have to say, education was not somewhere where I was thinking I would take my career. Before that, as you said, I'd worked mainly in FMCG and technology companies like Unilever, Reckitt Benckiser, and most recently Dyson. And I was super happy flogging stuff. I love selling, vacuum cleaners, hair dryers, even disinfectants, as well as kind of green tea. I really loved all of it. But 3 years ago, out the blue, an ex-colleague called me about this job at Pearson. And the more I spoke to the team at Pearson, the more I realised that it really ignited a fire in my belly to do good. I love marketing. And I suddenly realised that I could combine my love of marketing with actually having a more positive impact in the world. And if I was going to do this for another 20 years, if I was going to kiss my kids goodbye when mummy gets on a plane and goes away for a week, I wanted it to be for something that mattered a little bit more than shampoo. And I can honestly say, after 3 years, I still have that fire burning bright. It's wonderful to be able to apply my marketing skills and a profession I love to actually being able to help people realize their dreams of studying, working, or moving abroad. So yeah, a big career change for me 3 years ago, as I said, moving into the education world, but I honestly haven't looked back.
Oh, I love that. And what I'm really hearing is that almost purpose-driven leadership around, actually, as you say, if I'm gonna kind of be traveling, it's got to be meaningful to me, and there's got to be a purpose behind that feels really worthwhile. And I love that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm not sure if it is being driven by, entering into my mid-40s. I don't know if it was a bit of the COVID effect. But as I said, it's really captured my head and my heart now, and I'm very happy at Pearson. I love the work that we do. I love the team. I love the culture. I love the mission. But if for whatever reason I ever do decide to move on, it would definitely still be in this space of purpose driven. I don't think I can go back to just selling shampoo again, as much as I love shampoo.
Yeah. But what I'm also kind of curious about is, as you say, you're a woman in your kind of 40s, but that's had this phenomenal career trajectory. Can you give us like a bit of an insight into how you've got to this point in your career, and at what point did children enter the equation?
Sure, yeah. So I started my career at Unilever, and I will always be grateful for my time at Unilever. I was on their graduate scheme. So I joined the as a marketeer, but for 2 years, you actually rotate around the business. So as well as marketing, I also did a sales role. I even did a supply chain role. I spent 2 weeks at the pot noodle factory with a hairnet on, putting the soy sauce sachets in. It was an absolute scream, I have to say. And alongside that rotation, we also attended the Unilever Marketing Academy. And it really was like doing an MBA in marketing. I'd still get the folders out now, and it's over 20 years ago, and still use what I learned. It was just such a masterclass in excellent marketing. So I love the training, but I also love the ability to rotate around the different functions. As I think to be a great marketeer, you really have to understand and work well with product, with sales, with supply chain. You know, if you are dreaming about turning a pot noodle pink, it has big implications for the factory. And by spending 2 weeks there and seeing it with my own eyes and speaking to the people, it just meant that I could be so much more collaborative and actually get things right first time. So really love my time at Unilever. And 5 years in, I decided it was time for a move. Not because I wasn't enjoying it, I really was, but I was only in my early 20s and I just wanted to see what else was out there. It was my first job after university. But I decided that if I was going to move, it had to be for the right thing, because I knew I was onto a great, great company with Unilever. So if I'm really honest, I thought, right, what am I passionate about? Because I'm a big believer that as a marketeer, you should be able to market anything. Our job is to climb into the skin of our target audience and deeply understand them. But really, Nikki, it's so much more fun when it's stuff that you like. So I was like, well, what do I like? And at that time, and it hasn't changed that much now, but Rachel in her early 20s liked fashion, she liked booze, and she liked beauty.
Yeah, I can relate.
So that's where my kind of search started. And I have to say, it taught me the power of the network, because through friends of friends, I had the most unbelievable people take time out to speak to me. I spoke to a buyer at Harvey Nicks. I spoke to a marketeer at Topshop, and there were many more opportunities. And I have to say, I always do my best now. It's hard when your life is busy, but I always do my best to kind of help people out if they reach out to me, because I really believe what goes around comes around. So yeah, the power of the network is amazing. And I ended up at John Frieda. I mean, it was an amazing 2 years. I was just marketing to myself and my friends. I really, really enjoyed it. But I learned a lot, because I went from a big FMCG company to John Frieda, which had just been bought by KAO Brands. They own Molton Brown, Goldwell, so they're a big beauty brand. But it was only just so John was still really present. And so we worked a lot with John. We did a lot of PR. But it was a small team. So 1 minute you were doing strategy, the next minute I was photocopying. You know, you did whatever it took, and I loved it. And I would have stayed, but I fell in love. I met my now husband, and we did like a 1.5 year long distance relationship. And we decided that we're going to take the plunge and move in together. And he was based in Cheltenham, which is actually where I grew up. I never dreamed I'd come back to this part of the world, but it kind of makes sense. And so I started to look again for a job, thinking, goodness, I'm committing career and social suicide leaving London. What am I doing? And I managed to find a job with Reckitt Benckiser. At the time, they were based in Swindon. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. I get go back to my FMCG kind of homeland, which I loved. But Reckitt Benckiser was quite different to Unilever, but in a really positive way. At Reckitt Benckiser, I learned to become a commercial marketeer. Because as marketing, you ran the business unit. So I reported my numbers to the executive team every month. And it was great because I have to say, and I think I speak to a number of marketeers who can feel this way. You kind of sometimes feel a bit nervous about the numbers, but actually there's nothing to be nervous about. A P&L is just about adding and subtracting. We can all do it, but it really gave me that confidence, and it showed me the power of numbers and how with the data you can really influence change. You can grow your marketing budget. You can elevate the role of marketing to be a strategic business driver when you're putting revenue, gross margin, profit, ROI on the table. So really grateful for my time at Reckitt Benckiser for kind of really kind of making me feel comfortable being a commercial marketeer. And then the next move was to Dyson, again, not because I would have stayed with Reckitt Benckiser, but they moved from Swindon to Slough. So I did a year living in a hotel off of a Slough roundabout, and it just really wasn't long-term doable. And, me and my now husband had set up a wonderful life in Cheltenham, and we wanted to continue it. So I thought there's no way I'm going to do it again, find another fantastic job outside of London. But the stars were obviously aligned, and I got sent the Dyson job, which was, super exciting. Although, a lot of my colleagues at the time at Reckitt Benckiser were like, really, Rachel, you're leaving FMCG and you're going to a B2B role, because the role at Dyson was for its hand dryers. I don't know, I always go like that. I always do the hand movement. Which is when you're putting your hands in the hand dryer. And I was like, yes. And they're like, are you crazy? And I'm like, no, this is an amazing opportunity. And why I was so excited is when you work within FMCG, you work on these big global brands, which have been established for 10, 20 years. And what I found is when you kind of took over as a brand manager or marketing manager, you're handed almost like a metaphoric suitcase of, this is how you do the marketing for this brand. And you get to kind of shape it around the edges, but the success model is already in place. Whereas what excited me about the Dyson role is there was no suitcase. It was a complete blank piece of paper, and I was being brought in to build the suitcase, which was terrifying and exhilarating all at the same time. And I loved it. I didn't always get it right. We had some spectacular failures, but, we got there. We really built the success model within the B2B space. And I found that B2B is no different to D2C. You're still marketing to humans. It's just instead of Nikki in your mum capacity, I'm talking to you as Nikki in your career capacity. You still have hopes, you still have dreams, you still have worries, and you need to understand those to be able to sell to you as a professional as well as a mum. So the skill sets are really quite similar. And the good news for me is I managed to grow with Dyson. So I was there 11 years. I couldn't believe it in the end. I'd had 2 babies along the way. So I had Charlie, who's now 11. I can't believe it. I dropped him off at senior school this week, which was like a big moment.
I've had one that started there as well this week. I've got an 11-year-old, so I feel you.
How did that happen? I mean, I like to say that I'm not a hugely sentimental person, but I have to say, Nikki, I don't know about you. It really hit me. I had to, after he left, I walked into school. I had to sit there for 5 minutes and really just compose myself, because it was like, it only felt like yesterday I was carrying him home in my arms, and now he's so big. But it's wonderful. It's, it's what's meant to happen. They're meant to grow up and get independent. But yeah, it was a moment.
I feel you. I think this for me has been the biggest transition, like starting nursery, starting school. I was okay with that. But this transition, I think, it feels like a massive one. I feel like my son's ready, but I don't know if I am.
No, yeah, it's very true. It is very true. And it changes the dynamics for the whole family. So I've got
Absolutely.
daughter Molly as well, who's 7. But I can remember when Charlie started primary school, it completely changed our routine. And I kind of feel like the same is happening
Yeah.
again. So it's a really big moment. But best of luck to your son. I hope he enjoys it.
Likewise to
Um,
Charlie. And I've loved hearing that story. And I've got to say, I love your energy, Rachel. I can see and hear why you're so successful in the work that you do, because I can see the passion that you bring. And I'm obviously working for, did you say 11 years at Dyson?
11 years, yeah, at Dyson.
You in a company, in a brand that is so well known for innovation and creativity. And I work with so many organizations where that's a real key area for them. Like, how do we drive innovation? How do we build teams that do that? I'm wondering, what did you learn from that time, and what have you taken into perhaps now at Pearson's?
Oh, goodness. Well, look, I am still learning myself. I'm 20 years into my career and I'm still learning every day as the world around we live in now is changing so much. But I think probably through my time at Dyson, I kind of really kind of learned 3 things around how to get to great innovation. I think the first is all around deep customer insights.
Mm.
You've got to keep digging. Quite often, excuse me, I recently judged some B2B awards, and there was loads of fantastic work, but one of my observations were their insights were quite shallow. They kind of only asked why once. And for me, it's like you've got to keep on going. You've got to really go deep to understand that things that people wouldn't readily admit to you. Because great marketing, I think, is like holding a mirror up to somebody. And for you, Nikki, going, how the hell did you know that about me?
Are you
Like,
inside my mind? Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
I would never say that out loud, even to my best friend. But somehow this brand has understood it and they're showing me that they can help me solve it. So it's really, really kind of digging deep into customer services. Why? Just don't stop. And there's loads of really interesting ways you can do that. Market research is like kind of moving on all the time. There's, of course, one-to-one interviews and focus groups. But I used to go and spend time in people's houses, which might sound a bit weird, but it was wonderful watching them live, especially when I was working in the floor care category in Dyson. I was responsible for APAC. I've never lived in Korea. I've never grown up in Korea. So how am I meant to know, what innovation is right for them? But by going and spending time in their houses and seeing how they live and how they interact with each other, it's a great way to get really, really deep. So understanding your customer and consumer is a big, big one. I think the second one is trying to understand trends. I can remember, and this a case study back at university, which one of my lecturers kind of shared with us. And I think this shows the power of how teachers can inspire you. But it was about Henry Ford and the car. And so everybody at the time were in horse and carriages. And if you went and asked a customer back then, how can we improve this? They would be like, make faster horses. They would have never have dreamed of the car. So you've got to be on the pulse of trends, of technology to understand where it's going so you can capitalize on it and deliver things that we haven't even dreamed of. I mean, who thought when I didn't have a phone until I finished university?
Me too.
This is showing our age. There wasn't Google. I used to have to do research on microfiche. And I would never have dreamed of Google. But goodness, what are our kids going to be experiencing in their lifetimes? And it's being able to tap into those trends and those technologies and really be able to almost kind of see the future, which is hard. But it's really important if you want to try and leapfrog with your innovation. And then I think the final one is about bravery. I think you have to be brave and take a leap as a company, and not all are going to work. So you've got to be able to fail fast and move on. But again, there was a famous story when I was at Dyson, which James told regularly, about when he designed his first vacuum. And he really became famous because he showed you the dirt inside the vacuum cleaner. You know, there was no bag. And when he put it into market research, it absolutely bombed. Everybody, I wasn't there at the time, but apparently everybody was like, "Oh, that's gross. Why would I want to see my dirt?" So if James had listened to the market research, it probably wouldn't be the company it was today. But he was brave to listen, but decide to ignore it. And he did it anyway. And, you know, now it's one of the most loved features about a Dyson. And competition have copied it everywhere. So with market research, I always kind of say to my team, we absolutely listen, but then it is our job to choose what we action and what we say, thank you very much, but we're going to be brave and do it anyway.
That what great story. And I didn't know that about kind of the Dyson kind of story as well. So thank you for that. So obviously you're a big advocate and champion for working parents. So thank you for everything you do, because I'm going to encourage people to follow you on LinkedIn because you're a really powerful voice in this area. So I'm keen to hear from you what life is like for you as a working parent, and actually how do you do the notorious balancing act?
Well, I do it better some days than others, Nikki. And I think that's the main thing is there is no magic wand and there is no right or wrong way. It's very personal for every person and every family. You know, everybody's relationship is different with their partner. Everybody's child is different and they have different needs. So I really wish I had a magic wand, but I don't. Also, it's been really hard. I'm not going to lie. You know, I've had, as I said, times when I think I'm winning and times when I just want to, you know, cry in a corner because you kind of think I just can't. I want to be the best mum. I want to be the best wife. I want to be the best daughter, the best friend, but I also want to be the best employee and the best manager. And it's just impossible. And, you know, sometimes something has to give. So the main thing is I would just say to people is be kind to yourself. Nobody's acing it, even if on the surface they look like they are. You know, we all have times when it works and times when it doesn't. So don't beat yourself up. But I think the couple of things I have done is, you know, I'm lucky I've got a really kind of supportive husband. You know, he does the school run twice a week. I do it twice a week. We try and kind of share it out kind of between us. I also have my mum and dad close by, which is like a godsend. You know, they're always on hand. I've built an amazing group of mummy friends. And all I can say is, you know, I just love it. Women supporting women. There's nothing better, really. And the amount of times I had to pick up the phone and go, I'm going to be late for school pickup. Can you grab mine? And I will happily do the same. Admittedly, for me, because I work full time, I find sometimes it's difficult to do in the week. But I always try and do stuff on the weekend if I can. Like, let me take your two on the weekend because you know I can't always do the school pickups. But I'm around on a Sunday afternoon. Let me take your two out for you to kind of return the favour and kind of keep that wheel of mummy love going around.
Oh, I love that.
I've also I've done a mix of nursery, but now we have a childminder. And oh my God, Julie is like, thank the Lord for Julie. She's so flexible and so kind. And it's like a home away from home for my kids. And I love that because they love being with Julie as much as they love being with me and with Matt, and they feel really comfortable. So it's kind of, I think, a mixture of all of those things, which have really helped me. But as I say, it doesn't always work. And sometimes it comes crashing down. Other times I'm like, I am acing. So yeah, it just depends on the day.
And I love your honesty there because I think that is so relatable. And every time we think we've got it nailed, something changes or one of the plates drops. But I also love that you've intentionally and give real power to your support network. And I think I think it's more of a female thing. We feel that we've got to be these strong, independent, can do it all super women. And almost there's a shame attached to needing support. asking for it, paying for it. It almost makes us not as capable, but it absolutely isn't the case. We weren't ever meant to do this alone, were we?
I agree, and I think some of it comes from the fact that we grew up in a generation being told we could do it all. I read the Graziers, I read the Mary Claires, and it was all about, you can do it all, you can be a career woman, you can be a great mom, go, go, go. And it's just not true. You can't have it all. Something has to give. And that is very personal to each person. So you just got to find your own way. Yeah, your own way of doing things, really.
Brilliant.
Don't pressure on yourself. It's easier for me to say than do sometimes. But yeah, and I would just say, don't be afraid to ask for help either, because sometimes I felt, oh no, I can't ask that mum again to pick up my kids.
Yes. Yeah.
I can't do it. But you know what? You can. And I never mind being asked. So I've got a bit better at saying yes as well. Yeah. And as I said, I always try and repay that favor in some shape or form. It might be babysitting or a Sunday when I'm not kind of like Monday to Friday, like for me. Yeah. But yeah, just don't be afraid to say yes. People wouldn't offer if they don't mean it. And I think, it's really important to do that.
Brilliant. And you've talked about, you work in very, very demanding roles in quite high pressured industries. I'm wondering what have been some of the challenges you've had to overcome over that time, particularly as a working parent?
Oh, goodness. Well, there's been, so many challenges along the way. I think kind of two immediately stand out. So I think I've been very lucky. I've always worked for really understanding kind of employers. I've always been able to get that flexibility. Admittedly, though, they've given me flexibility because I've always delivered, but it might be outside of normal working hours. So for me, for example, I always finish at 3 on a Friday, because for me, being at kind of school pickup at least once a week is like really important, and it's sacrosanct. I will not miss that. But quite often after we've had a play date or something on a Friday, the kids have had tea and they're just like kind of flopping on the TV, I'll grab the laptop out and I'll catch up. So it's wonderful to have that flexibility. But at times, I suppose at times, sometimes I kind of feel that maybe some of the team don't quite understand what it takes to, like, when you're on a business trip, I kind of rock up. And before I've got on that business trip, I have had to sort out 5 days worth of childcare. I have put meals in the freezer. I have packed kind of gym kits. I've almost done like, double the work just to be there. Yes. And then and I feel terrible saying, like, maybe some of the guys on the team or people without children just kind of swan in. Yes. Absolutely, I made it. And I just think it's not because they're like, unkind people and they don't get it, but it's just when you're not in it.
Absolutely.
And if you don't work with other people in your team, which are working mums, you just don't get it. And it was the same for me, to be honest with you. My best friend had kids probably 5-6 years before I did. I just didn't get it. Like, I'm like, why can't you come to the pub? You used to come to the pub. Yeah. And so it's a little bit like that sometimes at work. If you're in a team where people might have a stay-at-home partner, they might not have kids. They don't always understand, like, yes, I really, really want to be in London for an 8 o'clock meeting, but that means I've got to get a 5 o'clock train and I've got 2 kids to get to school. Yeah. And it's hard sometimes. I feel I don't always want to have to say, I can't do it because I've got to take the kids to gymnastics. I can't do that because I've got to take my kids to school. But it is just part and parcel of my life. So that's kind of been a bit of a challenge in terms of kind of balancing that. I suppose probably one of the biggest challenges is when I went back to work after my second baby, Molly, who's 7, so not a baby anymore. And at that point, when I was on maternity with Molly, my husband had got a new job, and I was so happy and really wanted to support him. Charlie was starting school, and I was like, how am I going to make this work? I'm going to have to do a nursery drop-off, a school drop-off, and, take on more myself because of my husband's new job. How am I going to do all of this? And it just felt really intimidating. So I spoke to Dyson and said, look, could I come? I want to come back 3 days a week, kind of temporarily. And they were really supportive of it. But I couldn't come back as a director. I had to take a step down. And that was tough, if I'm honest with you, Nikki, because she worked so hard, and I couldn't help but feel that my brain hadn't changed.
Yeah.
My ability hadn't changed. But I suppose my circumstances had. So it was really hard, and it felt like a real tummy punch, if I'm honest with you. And I had quite a few discussions with friends fueled by wine. What should I do? Should I stay? Should I go? I feel like I'm taking a step backwards. Anyway, I decided to go ahead with it. And it was a move actually out of marketing as well. It was into retail training. And I remember saying at the time, but I don't know anything about retail and I don't know anything about training. But they said, but Rachel, you know Dyson and you'll be fine. And you know what, Nikki, although I did have to take a step down to head of, I learned so much. What it actually kind of taught me now, reflecting back on it, is sometimes in your career, taking a sideways step can be really beneficial. I'd always just been climbing that marketing ladder. I'm an exec, then I'm a brand manager, I'm a senior brand manager, and I just wanted to keep going up. That was like my vision, if you'd like, from when I started at Unilever. And what I learned through this experience is by going sideways, it can really help give you a trampoline to go back up that ladder at the right time. And I think without babies, I would never have thought to do that. But I learned so much, which I could then bring back into marketing. And so if I could speak now to the younger Rachel, I would probably say to her, don't be in as much of the rush to go up the ladder. Think about going laterally, because actually it will help you get to your end goal faster and probably make you better at those most senior roles because you have a more rounded experience.
I love that. It reminds me of the Steve Jobs speech that he gave at a university where he said, you can't join the dots looking forward, you can only join them looking backwards. And at the time, something doesn't make sense when he got kicked out of Apple and ended up at Pixar. But then when he came back into Apple, the technology brought back in from Pixar and all of those different pieces. And at the time, it doesn't make sense. But I love that because, as you said, it was a trampoline for you, even though it felt like, I imagine, that your career was derailing at that point just because you'd chosen to start a family.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I quite like the analogy with Steve Jobs. I'm going to take that, Nikki.
I'll send you the link after this. It's a brilliant commencement speech he gives at, I think it's Stanford University. There's so much more I could ask you, but I'm really conscious of your time because you're an incredibly busy woman. I'm wondering, what else would you like to tell my listeners? Because, as I say, you're such an advocate for working parents and an inspiring role model about what it takes and the journey that you've been on. And I really appreciate your honesty and the stories that you've told. What would you tell perhaps another woman who's listening to this interview that may be kind of early in her journey as a working parent and is in that place where, as you said, how am I going to manage this all? I've got nursery drop-offs, I've got like the demands of my role, and I want to show up for my family. What would be the insight you could share?
Oh, goodness. I would say don't give up. If it's what you really want, and it's not for everybody, and I think it's okay as well to tap out if it's not what you want, because I've spoken to people who, are desperate to come back to work and then just spend the whole time at work missing their children. And I'm just like, just go back to them. There's nothing wrong with saying, actually, my outlook is completely changed. And I think that's wonderful. And it is so recognize it. But if you have decided that, you want to try and make it work, I would just say, don't give up. Really don't give up. There are going to be hard times, especially when they're young. I can remember coming back, and as soon as you put them in nursery, they get all these weird and wonderful diseases. Like, I never heard of hand, foot, and mouth. Slap cheek. What the hell is that? But suddenly they all get it. Then you get ill, and it is just really, really hard. It just feels, is this ever going to end? But I think, make sure you book yourself some nice holidays. Don't be afraid to put yourself first. I remember when they were young going on holiday, and we put Charlie, in holiday in creche for a couple of hours. And some people kind of questioned, oh, but you work full time and don't you want to spend time with your child on holiday? I'm like, Well, of course I do, but I can only be the best mum if I get some rest as well.
Brilliant.
So yeah, I would just try and prioritize yourself, whether it is, as I say, a holiday with a little bit of respite because there's a kids club. Maybe I occasionally take a Friday off and just go and have a spa day. The kids are in school now or in nursery, but it's just a little bit of time for me, because I think you're a better mum and you're a better person if you can just invest that little bit of time in you. And it is really hard because I think you, as a mother, full stop, but then as a working mum, you come at the bottom of the pile. But try and put yourself first every now and again and create those little moments where either you on your own, you and your husband, you and your mum, or you and your friends, and you can just go and be you and forget about work, forget about the kids, and invest in you a little bit.
I love that. And I can see, because your energy is infectious. And I imagine that's part of your leadership brand and part of what's made you successful in your work. But to be able to maintain that level of energy doesn't come by chance, I'm imagining, particularly if when you're not working, you want to give energy to your family. And the fact that you are really conscious and intentional about, and I've got to recharge that because everybody needs a bit of it and I need to fill it up so that I can do the things that I love with the people that I love.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, no,
absolutely. I'm normally in bed by 9:30.
I feel like we're kindred spirits, Rachel. I really do.
It's really rock and roll here. Friday night, I'm in bed by 9:30.
I have the sleeping pattern of a toddler. I wake early and I go to bed early. My 20-year-old self would just have her head in hands in shame.
I know, it's completely the reverse, isn't it? It's so funny how it turns full circle. I agree. I used to be in bed till 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and now ping, 6 o'clock, I'm wide awake.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And if people want to connect with you, where would be the best place to do that?
I think LinkedIn is really the best place. It's been wonderful and I do my best to try and respond to everybody who gets in contact. It's bear with me. It's not always kind of easy trying to do it on top of everything else. But I get real inspiration and real energy from, if I can just help one other kind of working mum, then for me, that makes me feel really good. So it's a real win-win. So yeah, please reach out. Love to interact with everybody.
Brilliant. And I'll put that link into the show notes so people can click through and connect on there. But thank you, Rachel. It's been lovely speaking to you and hearing your story and your insights.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Nikki. Stay in touch. Take care. Bye-bye.
If you've enjoyed this episode of Wisdom for Working Mums, please share it on social media and with your friends and family. I'd love to connect with you too. So if you head over to wisdomforworkingmums.co.uk, you'll find a link on how to do this. And if you love the show and really want to support it, please go to iTunes, write a review and subscribe. You'll be helping another working mum find this resource too. Thanks so much for listening.